Biden's cancer diagnosis is sad news, but it's also perfect timing. There's that saying, I think it's Steve Bannon, who loves to say there are no coincidences. Well, that's true in politics because everything in the United States is scripted. We live in a completely scripted political world. President Trump is frustrating to the powers of Washington, D.C. because he often breaks the script, although they've gotten a lot tighter in this second term, a lot tighter and a lot better coordinated. When we found out that the figurehead had exactly what we thought he had, which was dementia and a broken mind, it wasn't a big surprise. But it was a big surprise to you to learn that he had cancer. He told us he had cancer. He told us from the campaign trail he had cancer. He blamed it on smokestacks as to why he had cancer. Was anyone surprised? The timing of this is magnificent, of course, because the Her report came out. And the Her report did something to the Mockingbird media that's been bubbling up for years. It has shown that they still didn't learn anything. They didn't learn anything from the Russia hoax. They didn't learn anything from being used in the COVID stuff. They didn't learn anything from the Hunter Biden laptop. They didn't learn anything from all the many ways they've spoken the words of the establishment and the Mockingbird media cannot learn. Here's an example. This comes from The Atlantic. How Her misled the country on Biden's memory. And here they're talking about the special investigator who went to interview Biden in that famous, infamous audio clip where Joe Biden proved he didn't have any idea where he was. The sad news and perfect timing is an attempt to do something to people like me who intend to continue to point out there never was a President Biden, not only because the election was highly questionable to me, but also because he was running the country in absentia by auto pen. I'll give you some great examples of a guy named Stephen Miller who has done a fantastic job of reminding the Mockingbird media about so much of what they said. We'll go through 3 minutes of the Mockingbird media pretending this wasn't the case. And then sort of a surprising piece of video from Dr. Zeke Emanuel, one of the very, very evil Emanuel brothers from Democrat politics, who has come out to say, hey, you know what? The cancer thing, that didn't just pop up. We'll do all of that in just a second. I have to remind you that there is a ton of corruption everywhere in our system. It shows up in this and it shows up in our financial system. President Trump has taken an approach that's been insanely controversial to this, the tariffs approach. Now, I think it's beginning to pay off. And if President Trump goes through 4 years and we get a J.D. Vance, I think it's going to be a huge economic revolution for us in our favor. And those are a number of ifs. But I'd rather have you listen to my friend Zach Abraham. He's the Chief Investment Officer of Bulwark Capital Management. Coming up this week, Thursday, May 22nd, he's giving a free live webinar, and it is devoted to tariffs and your retirement. So whether you're 5, 10, or 15 years from retirement, this is something you'd be wise to watch because we're in a world right now where we sit on a precipice. A president trying to return us to economic stability and, in fact, dominance in some sectors like energy, versus a machine that wants us to go back to America last. It's a free live webinar, but you have to register to attend. So go to knowyourriskradio.com. That's K-N-O-W, knowyourriskradio.com. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 25-206. Stephen Miller had a ton of fun with some stuff he's clearly been storing up for such a day as this. And it has to do with the Mockingbird media and the timing of Biden's cancer announcement. Michelle Goldberg wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times, and she wrote this way back in February 2024. That's almost never ago. Biden's age is a campaign problem, not a governing one. That same Michelle Goldberg wrote in March 16th of 2025. That's almost just now. How did so many elected Democrats miss Biden's infirmity? Maybe because people like you, Michelle, were more than happy to pretend it's just a campaign problem, nothing to do with the man's state of mind and ability to govern. Stephen Miller hit another guy. This is Chris Cillizza, one of the worst and most dishonest actors in the CNN universe. He posted on Twitter, "This is absolutely shameful. The White House was extremely aggressive with reporters and on social media, casting her as some wild-eyed GOP operative." Chris Cillizza also wrote on August 19, 2021, a piece of analysis. It's CNN. Here's the headline. Republicans keep trying to make Biden's mental capacity an issue. The timing of the cancer announcement makes all the sense in the world. It's perfectly timed. There is not a chance that Biden didn't have this cancer, and we'll get to that because even Zeke Emanuel admits this. So does Dr. Drew. Doctors across the border saying this didn't just pop up. You don't suddenly have stage 5 prostate cancer. What's this done to the Mockingbird media has continued to show something. Not only did they not learn from what they did with the Russia hoax, how they were used during the COVID event, how they were used during Hunter Biden, how they were put in a position of begging for social media censorship. They didn't notice any of this because the Mockingbird media has rendered themselves incapable of learning. Clay Travis posted this. Thank you, Clay. It's 3 minutes of the legacy media, or as I call them, the Mockingbird, talking about how sharp Joe Biden was.
Because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
She knows so long as she was 9.
In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been.
President Biden has a photographic memory. His understanding and mastery of a complicated geopolitical situation, remarkable.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
I was sitting,
Yes, right
2 feet from him across the table, and he was, intense.
Have trouble walking sometimes? Yeah, so did FDR. He wanted GD war.
But he's totally focused. He's very sharp.
They say he's sharp in meetings and so on.
Very lucid, very well informed.
Biden is stately, and he comes with gravitas.
There hasn't been, as far as I know, a single claim that
Paul
Biden
Krugman
made a mistake. Ageism is an issue. Americans have a rich history of holding people's physical characteristics against them. Okay, you can ask African Americans.
He's older. That doesn't mean that he is unfit, and there's a lot of ageism there.
Now, this age attack, this obsession by the right.
Joe Biden may not be able to speak for himself the way that he used to.
They want to think to take on government if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, and that's him lying around.
I think people should be speaking up for Joe Biden.
Americans and reporters in the media are just judging him by a physical appearance, and it's horribly unfair. Age is an asset.
He showed exactly how with it he is.
The flip side of this coin is that he has a tremendous amount of wisdom and experience.
Have you heard any concerns from anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower?
No.
More wild speculation from a bunch of people who have probably never been in a room with Joe Biden and certainly don't have medical.
She has, by the way, on the screen, herd mentality. Robert Hurd, who got to interview Biden in this now infamous bit where Biden showed himself to be unaware of when his son died. And I'm not saying like the date. I'm saying within a 5-year stretch. Back to the video.
That I'm aware of.
You don't get paid for performance.
Sleeping in his
to be
mask.
president. You don't. The job is not a job of endurance. I don't see Donald Trump out bike riding like Joe Biden.
It's the Hillary's email. All they have is that he's old.
He can clear a dementia bar, and that's probably a win.
The media are not fair, and they're getting less and less fair, and things are frightening. You have Wall Street Journal running a horribly sourced piece saying that Biden is unfit.
Horribly sourced. And now what do we have? He was unfit the whole time. And there's a link to the video if you want to watch the full thing. What we know is that Biden never really ran the office. We know this because of the auto pen. We know that Ed Martin, who has now been put in charge of the warfare, the political warfare portion of DOJ, looking into how the DOJ was weaponized against President Trump and others. He said he's going to investigate now the pardons by auto pen. This is not just a, quote, age scandal. It never was. It never had to do with age. It's always been about his dementia. It's always been about, is he even running anything? And now it's about cancer and the timing of the cancer. Stephen Miller was talking again about members of the Mockingbird media. Tommy Viter is not just media, he's a Democrat stalwart, a strategist, as it were. I found the context about the Hur report to be some of the most interesting revelatory information in Original Sin. At the time, Hur's comments about Biden being an elderly man with a poor memory seemed like a James Comey-style inappropriate editorializing about a non-charging. Well, that's interesting. Stephen Miller reposted this and said, here's a bunch of words from Tommy to deflect from his original post. Tommy Viter also wrote, Hur's claim that Biden can remember the day his son died was an outrageous lie. It's also cruel and irrelevant. Anyone who's experienced loss like that can remember images, smells, bits of conversation. The pain is burned into you. Dates blend together because they're irrelevant. Weijie Zhang had written, the president was fired up about Herman's claim that he couldn't remember when his son Bo died because it was false. He immediately said the date according to the interview transcript. He didn't immediately say the date. He was off by a number of years. Someone had to remind him of the date. The story within the story within the story is this. There is the meta lie. He ran things in the White House. There are the smaller lies within that. He was very diligent in all the things that he signed. He was really up to date on everything that they were doing policy-wise. He looked intently through and diligently through all of the decisions to pardon all of these people. These are the mini lies. And then the bigger one was this. They intended for him to be president for another 4 years. They knew for a fact that this man was sick. He said it himself. Dr. Zeke Emanuel is no friend of the right. He's no friend of America. His brother is Rahm Emanuel. They're two of the most ruinous people in the history of America. It was Zeke Emanuel who was one of the famous proponents of the actual Obamacare panels that would decide who got access to life-extending care and who didn't. He was the author of one of these things. He'd very famously said that he doesn't want to live past a certain age, and he doesn't think we should live past a certain age. He put a timestamp on that. I don't know if he still stands by that. That's his decision if he wants to do that. But he sort of thinks it's an ethical thing that we should be forced to make that decision. So he's no friend of God's word. He's no friend of American life. He's no friend of the right. But Zeke Emanuel was forced to admit something about Biden's cancer.
You're an oncologist, obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So again, I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you are saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
There's zero chance that the doctor who said that Biden was healthy either did a cancer screening because he didn't want to know, or that he thought that the cancer meant that Biden was okay. People like Dr. Drew have mimicked that same analysis, 4 to 5 years for it to get to this point. So the timing is perfect because, of course, her report comes out. People are actually talking about the cover-up. There are Democrats in power who are part of the cover-up. There's Jill, who is part of the cover-up. There's the Mockingbird media is part of the cover-up. But why are they doing this now? All that already existed. Everybody already knew he was demented. Because of the discussion of the pardons. Because of the fact that Ed Martin intends to investigate whether Joe Biden had any idea what the auto pen was signing. Because if Joe Biden didn't order the auto pen signings, those pardons are null and void, or should be.